you're watching this video today, there's a strong chance that you're in one of my English 101 classes and that you've just been assigned to read the Gettysburg Address. If you don't have your copy of the Gettysburg Address available, it should be linked on your course page, and if for some reason you've stumbled across this video and you're not in my class, there's also a link to the same one at the very bottom of this video. It will take you to the Cornell University website version of the Gettysburg Address, which has not only a transcript of their copy of the Gettysburg Address, but also some of Lincoln's drafts if you'd like to look at some of his different versions. I would recommend that you pause this video for a moment and pull up the original Gettysburg Address, whatever copy you happen to have handy, so that you can look at it as I do, so that you have it at hand as I begin the rhetorical exercise in the next few minutes. The primary focus of this video is to talk to you about how Lincoln uses rhetoric to create a specific listening experience for a specific audience at a particular moment in American time. The Gettysburg Address would have been very different if he had used different words to get the same ideas across, and I'd like to show you my own example of that. It's substantially inferior to Lincoln's, and it should show you why Lincoln's rhetoric, the words that he used, are just as important as the underlying message that he was trying to convey. Here we go. The Founding Fathers established the United States here as a place of freedom 87 years ago. They held to the principle that all men are created equal. Now, different parts of our country are at war, testing that principle in America and in general. We stand on a battlefield today, rightly honoring this graveyard for soldiers who died for the lives of their fellow countrymen. However, it is not we who sanctify this field. The brave men who fought here have already done that. We can add nothing to their sacrifices, which the world will never forget. Our commemoration, in contrast, will pass largely unnoticed. Instead of dedicating this space, we must dedicate ourselves to the worthy cause for which these men died. We will carry on the fight so that our Christian country will be a land of freedom and a place where democracy succeeds. Even just listening to that statement, you've probably noticed that it's vastly different from what Lincoln himself actually said. I've kept most of Lincoln's ideas, and I've even kept a lot of them in the same sequence. My clauses largely, if you align the two, will match up pretty well with the clauses and phrases of Lincoln's speech. I have simplified some things, but in general the biggest difference is that I've taken out a lot of his repetition and I've removed a great deal of his figurative language. I think you'll agree that the effect is far less powerful in my own short, somewhat weak adaptation. Abraham Lincoln infused the Gettysburg Address with dozens of rhetorical devices. There's figurative language such as euphemisms. He has a lot of oral effects like alliteration. And he also has a number of structural devices such as anaphora and epistrophe, the repetition of words at the beginnings and ends of phrases. He also uses lots of devices like parallelism and other forms of repetition. Throughout the address, he makes a number of pointed allusions to religious and political texts that are designed to be identifiable by his audience. Some sentences even refer to famous abolitionist speeches. Lincoln's words and phrases throughout the text would have had specific connotations, specific meanings and nuances for the audience that he was speaking to at the time at which he delivered it. We've lost some of those through history. Others of them are still identifiable. For instance, some of his phrases are taken from the Book of Common Prayer, and a lot of his language is specifically designed to be religious in tone. One reason I've started today with that sort of awful compression or paraphrase of Lincoln's Gettysburg Address is that when I think about rhetoric, I often find it useful to think about other ways that writers could have expressed the same information. If you think about what Lincoln could have said and how much less powerful it would have been, you can start to move away from the very important message that he was delivering in his speech and think instead about the very important words and phrases and pacing and types of repetition that he used to make that message as powerful as possible through his language. That elevation of language to be more powerful than the straightforward facts is rhetoric, and it's used every day in almost everything that you see, from advertisements on television to political speeches to articles in the newspaper and even sometimes in visual things. Lincoln uses these rhetorical devices to establish his political and moral authority. He also uses them to infuse his audience with a sense of ownership over the message he's speaking, and in the process he's using quite a lot of ethos and pathos and a little bit of logos. The articles that you'll be reading and reviewing for your rhetorical analysis essay were not originally meant for oral delivery, and so they'll have slightly different rhetorical effects and rhetorical devices than Lincoln's speech. However, they are just as much carefully and meticulously crafted to lead you to a particular conclusion through ethical appeals, logical appeals, and even appeals to your emotion in the process. The writers carefully select their rhetoric to get across a particular message. Lincoln clearly succeeded. He infused not only his audience but also some members of other foreign governments with the desire to act, and that had a significant impact upon the Civil War overall. Do your writers succeed in their own uses of rhetoric? Do they successfully use rhetorical devices to appeal to ethos, logos, and pathos? That is for you to determine and to write about in your rhetorical analysis essay.